Hi, and welcome to another Exhibit Explainer video. In this video, we take a closer look at the introduction profiles in the voice room so you can easily decide which profile suits the introduction for your artwork. To begin with, what are the introduction profiles? The introduction profile defines how the introduction of every voice experience is presented to the visitor. Within the voice room, you can choose between an informative profile, an engaging profile, and an inspiring profile, which we'll explore in more detail later in this video. Each profile uses the same underlying knowledge base and the same information. Selecting a different profile does not change the content itself, but it does change how that content is communicated by changing the tone and structure of the introduction. In practice, this means that the same artwork or object can be introduced in different ways, depending on the kind of experience you want to create. It's important to note that these profiles apply only when you let AI generate the introduction. If you choose to write the introduction yourself, the profile selection is no longer active, since the tone and structure are then fully defined by your own text. In this video, I'll show you the differences between the profiles through one single example: The Night Watch, the renowned masterpiece by Rembrandt van Rijn. As you can see, I've generated 3 different introductions using AI, all based on the exact same knowledge base, but each with a different profile. To keep the comparison as clean as possible, I haven't added any focus points to the introductions myself. Let's begin with the informative profile and see how this approach introduces the Night Watch.
Step into 17th century Amsterdam, a city defined by its pride and newfound freedom. At the heart of this republic stood civic militias, ordinary men tasked with protecting their community. While most artists painted these groups in stiff, orderly rows, Rembrandt chose a revolutionary path in 1642. He didn't just paint a portrait, he captured a moment of explosive energy. As we gaze upon the Night Watch, we see Captain Frans Banning Cocq leading his men into action. Through dramatic light and shadow, Rembrandt focuses our eyes on the leaders and a luminous young girl serving as the company's symbolic mascot. This masterpiece transcends a simple record of faces, becoming an allegory of leadership and civic virtue. Interestingly, the dark atmosphere that gave the painting its name was actually the result of aged varnish, not the artist's original intent. What remains is a study of a community united by purpose, frozen in that instant between preparation and movement. Would you like me to explore the hidden symbols in the militiamen's equipment, or the story of how the painting was physically altered over the centuries?
Now that you've heard the introduction, you can hear how the informative profile comes through in the tone of the voice. It feels very much like a tour guide speaking. The voice briefly points out the key elements of the work, touching on each of them without going into excessive detail. As a listener, you're guided through the scene and you know what to pay attention to without being overwhelmed. At the same time, the tone remains narrative and warm. It doesn't sound dry or instructional, but flows as a coherent story. The voice explains, but never lectures, creating a sense of orientation and confidence for the visitor. This is what the informative profile sounds like in practice. Next, we'll move on to the engaging profile and listen to how it introduces the Night Watch.
Step right into the center of the noise and notice how the light seems to explode from the canvas, catching the hand of Captain Frans Banning Cocq as he gestures us forward. Beside him, the lieutenant's yellow uniform practically vibrates against the shadows. Look closer at the textures. Rembrandt used paint so thick it catches the real light in the room, making these men feel as though they are breathing. Notice that golden girl glowing in the crowd? Look at her belt. That's a chicken hanging there, a sharp pun on the claws of the musketeers. Everywhere you look, there is a flurry of motion, a drum beating, a musket being primed, a banner beginning to rise. Despite the famous name, this isn't a scene of midnight. Centuries of old varnish simply fooled the world into thinking it was night. It is actually a burst of daylight energy. Can you feel the sudden tension as they prepare to march? Stay here a moment. Notice how the light singles out the leaders while the rest of the company dissolves into the drama of the dark. Would you like me to explain the recent high-tech restoration efforts or dive into the personal tragedy Rembrandt was facing while he painted this?
Now that you've heard the second introduction, you can hear how the engaging profile changes the role of the voice. Here, the voice speaks directly to the listener. It pulls you into the scene and places you inside the artwork, rather than observing it from a distance. You're guided moment by moment, with clear prompts that tell you where to look and what to notice. The tone is energetic and vivid. The language is more immediate, using direct address and sensory cues to keep your attention focused. Instead of calmly outlining the whole picture, the voice zooms in on specific elements to create a sense of presence. This is what defines the engaging profile in practice. The listener is no longer just informed, but actively involved in the experience. Next, we move to the final example where we'll listen to the inspiring profile and hear how it introduces the night watch.
Imagine standing in a crowded hall where you can almost hear the rustle of silk and the sharp clink of metal. This is a living tableau of shared breath and nervous energy. It is a frozen instant, the split second before a group of people begins to move as one. The golden tonality of the room feels warm and heavy, like the last light of an afternoon breaking through a window. If you look closely, you can see the thick impasto of the paint. It's so physical that the armor and fabric seem to have a texture you could actually touch. Amidst the soldiers, a luminous girl wanders through the crowd like a guardian spirit, her quiet glow offering a sanctuary of innocence in a world of muskets and drums. This profound study of human complexity doesn't just show us faces, it captures the human struggle between order and chaos. As the dramatic contrast of the light unites individual energies into a single burst of purpose, one wonders what it feels like to be swept up in a moment so much larger than yourself. Would you like to explore the feelings of the figures hidden in the deeper shadows? Or perhaps the story of how this brilliant light was nearly lost to time?
In this introduction, you can hear how the role of the voice shifts once again. Here, the voice no longer guides you through specific elements or directs your attention. Instead, it creates a mood and leaves space for emotion and interpretation. The language is slower, more evocative, and less concerned with explanation. Rather than telling you what to look at, the voice invites you to notice how the scene feels. It focuses on atmosphere, tension, and the emotional weight of the moment, allowing the listener to form a personal connection to the work. This is what defines the inspiring profile. The content is still rooted in the same artwork, but the experience is shaped around feeling and imagination, rather than guidance or instruction. To wrap this up, it's important to remember that all three profiles are always built on the exact same knowledge base. They use the same information and draw from the same content. What changes is not what the system knows, but how that knowledge is expressed. Each profile gives a voice a different tone and a different focus. You could clearly hear that in the introductions of the Night Watch. The facts stayed the same, but the experience shifted. In one case, the voice guided you. In another, it pulled you into the scene. And in the last, it focused on how the work made you feel. That's the essence of introduction profiles. They allow you to shape the experience without changing the content, so you can choose the tone that best fits the character of the artwork or object and the experience you want to create. And that's how introduction profiles work. Thank you for watching, and good luck creating your voice experiences in the voice room.